Okay, thank you. Good evening. Apologies for the slight delay, technical hitch. Welcome to this evening's Planning South Committee. I am Councillor Ellis Brown and I shall be chairing this evening's meeting. I shall be supported by the Vice Chair, Councillor Lambert, on my left, and the professional officers. Thank you for attending. May I remind members of the public this is not a public meeting, but a meeting in which the public are present. Therefore, it's not a forum for the public to ask questions or challenge the points raised during debate by the officers or members of the committee. You must not engage with the members or call out during the meeting. Thank you. If you have requested to speak, when invited to do so, please keep to your allotted time. The officers would have told you that prior to the commencement of the meeting. And your comments must be material to the planning in terms of the decision that the members are considering. We are not expecting a fire drill today, so should you hear the alarm, please make your way to the nearest fire exit, which is at the back there and there. And we locate outside the local pub, which I forget the name of.
Linda Cross. Linda Cross.
Okay, thank you very much. As comes a being teetotal, I guess.
I'm teetotal. What a pub's called.
Please can council members and members of the public switch off their mobile phones or turn them to silent. Remember to turn your microphone on before speaking and turn it off when you've finished. I also remind everyone here this evening that the meeting is being live streamed and to behave accordingly, and in particular please show respect to one another throughout the meeting. When members are voting, make sure your arm is clearly raised so that the officer can accurately capture the vote. Before we proceed, could the officers presenting this evening please introduce themselves, starting with the officers on my right.
Nick Pettifer, Senior Planning Officer.
Good evening, I'm Adrian Smith and I'm here in place of our Head of Development and Building Control, Emma Parks.
Good evening, Claire Brown, Principal Planning Solicitor.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absence.
We have apologies for absence from Councillor John Campbell, Councillor Ruth Fletcher and Councillor Josh Potts.
Thank you. We have two sets of minutes to consider this evening. Can I take the minutes of both of these previous meetings as agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of... Sorry, Councillor Trollope, yes.
Just to say, I did see an email from Alan Manton saying that he was unable to attend as well. Oh, hello.
That's Councillor Manton, by the way, Councillor Trollope. Thank you. Yes. Okay, thank you. Declarations of members' interest. Are there any declarations or changes? No? Okay. Announcements from the Chair or the Chief Exec. There are none from either of us this evening. So item number 5, appeals. Any comments on the appeals? Councillor Circus, yes.
Well, it's not exactly a comment on these appeals, but I would like to ask the question. When the new committee, the rearrangement of things takes place, will all members of council still be sent regularly appeal information so that members generally can keep track of what's happening with appeals?
Thank you, Councillor Circus. We'll take that away. We can't answer it right now, and the officer will come back to you in regard to that question.
Well, can I make a request, and I'm sure it's supported by everyone here, that that is the case and that all members of council moving forward receive information about appeals?
I will ensure that there is a comment from the officers regarding this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the first application this evening. This is for DC 220639, land parcel at East Street, West Chiltington. This was deferred from a previous meeting in order for members to take a site visit. Thank you. Please the officer make their presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Whoops. So, as members might recall, this application was deferred from the March meeting to allow a site visit to consider the sustainable location of the proposal in relation particularly to the Old Village part of West Chiltington. Information had been provided at the meeting that the village shop post office might soon be closing, leaving the Old Village part of West Chiltington without a shop. That site visit has now taken place with a number of members visiting the site independently. So in relation to the site's location, which is adjacent to the Old Village, it's shown in red on this slide. This slide illustrates the two distinct parts of West Chiltington and a number of the village facilities that are available. The residential development sites that have been allocated within the emerging West Chiltington neighbourhood plan are shown in blue. And together with the application site, the 3 sites are also allocated for residential development in the draft local plan. The green circles represent a 1 kilometre radius around each of the current village shops. The application site is therefore well connected in a wider sense of being within a village location where some, albeit limited, facilities and services are located and available. The Council's policy team have also commented that sustainability goes beyond shops and schools and bus stops and extends to the cohesive community aspect of a settlement, such as clubs, societies and other interest groups, of which there are many in West Chiltington. Since the last meeting in March, a number of additional representations have been received from 10 local address points, citing the following objections. Safety of school children, horse riders, walkers, dog walkers, cyclists, with many drivers ignoring the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, not enough space for legal overtaking, congestion with school parking, no space for HGVs, inconsiderate school parking, the exit onto East Street, which is a narrow country lane, the road condition being poor, has no footway, the loss of a shop and post office, flooding and housing should be affordable and in the right location. Just to provide a recap on the proposal, the application site comprises a gently sloping site situated on the northeastern side of West Chiltington, the Old Village, to the east of Hatch's house and Hatch's paddock. It's just under half a hectare in size. To the southern side is East Street and Nordritz Farm, Nordritz Barn, both of which are Grade 2 listed buildings. There's a primary school around 130 metres to the southwest of the site. This context plan shows the public right-of-way along the eastern side, the listed buildings to the south, and the relationship with the existing built-up area boundary of West Chiltington. The conservation area lies some 230 metres to the west of the site, and you can see on the plan the primary school is also indicated. This is an aerial view of the site in context. The site is currently an open fenced paddock with a public right-of-way running along the east side, fenced with cleft chestnut pale post and rail fence. It's another view of the site. You've got Nordritz Barn, you've got Clark's Barn, which sits to the east of the site, and then Hatch's house which lies to the west. The proposal is for 8 dwellings, 4 semi-detached and 4 detached houses, which will be accessed off East Street in the south-eastern corner. There will be no affordable units as the development lies below the threshold for delivering affordable housing on site. Each of the dwellings would utilise black cladding, clay roof tiles and a low brick plinth, which reflect the typical West Sussex barn vernacular and which form a cohesive development across the site. Some more elevations of the site. And just an indicative CAD visual. The Highways Authority acknowledged that East Street is a single-width lane subject to a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. The new development will be provided with a bellmouth junction and associated visibility displays, which are mostly over highways-owned land. The submitted transport statement includes swept path diagrams which ascertain that a car, fire tender and refuse vehicle can access the site off East Street. Highways Authority have had sight of the transport statement as well and support the proposal on highways grounds. The TRIX database, which is used to estimate the likely number of trips generated by the proposed development, sets out that on average 7 trips in the AM peak and 3 trips in the PM peak would occur as a result of the proposed 8 dwellings. The Local Highways Authority consider that this level of trip generation would not be detrimental to the operation of the local highway network. The proposed site has previously been subject to an appeal application for 3 dwellings, and following this pre-application engagement before the current application has been submitted. On the matter of the site's location, the previous appeal inspector found the site to be well related to the existing village and its services, notwithstanding the details on the shop which was noted at the previous meeting. And that the form of development would be in keeping with the wider development and character of West Chiltington, would be visually contained and well defined within the boundaries of the site. No highways related issues were identified as part of the previous application or the subsequent appeal. As mentioned at the start of the presentation, the site has not been allocated within the draft West Chiltington Neighbourhood Plan, but is allocated within the Reg 19 draft local plan, which envisages that the site could accommodate some 8 dwellings. Officers also consider that the site accords with the overall provision in the FAD document, facilitating appropriate development, with the adjacent site adjacent to the existing built-up area of West Chiltington. In assessing the current proposal, the Council's lack of 5-year housing land supply position is a material consideration, as is the out-of-date status of the current local plan, insofar as the housing policies are concerned. Following assessment of the above criteria, the proposal can satisfy the habitats, regs and water neutrality. As the site has been allocated within the post-submission local plan, it will be eligible for joining the emerging strategic SNOWS scheme and thus would address water neutrality. Pre-commencement planning conditions have been added to require the development to join the district-wide SNOWS scheme or to submit an alternative site-wide water neutrality scheme. The Council's Heritage Officer is satisfied that the proposal would not lead to an adverse impact on the heritage asset, being Nordritz Barn to the south. There are no flood risks that have been raised as part of the proposal. The site is not subject to any national landscape designation, nor within or close to a national park. It's not a local green space or within a green belt. And ecology, the site doesn't trigger the mandatory BNG requirements, as it has been with us predating the BNG commencement date. So therefore, the proposed development does not raise any material concerns, and noting that the post-submission status of the local plan, which allocates this application site, officers find that the proposal is acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Before moving forward, Councillor Manton, yes.
Sorry, Chairman. I'm getting a couple of messages from residents sitting at home who say that there's no sound on this. They can only get visual. I wondered if we could get the sound fixed and perhaps just summarise that again for them.
Okay.
Chairman. Sorry, Chairman. I understand there is a problem with the sound. IT have been trying to fix it. Unfortunately, we cannot get a fix currently.
We don't know. before I proceed, can you hear me at the back now? Right, so we just need to... Okay. Can you speak, say just something?
Yes, no, yes.
Can you hear now? Yeah, okay.
A
Thank you.
point of order, Chairman. If part of the consideration of this application is not heard by people, perhaps our legal officer could advise whether that invalidates the consideration of this application. Thank you,
I
Chairman.
took advice on this from the monitoring officer last time we had this problem, and her advice was very clear that it does not.
Okay. Thank you. Taken advice from legal officer, which you've heard, and then we will proceed. If you can't hear at any time in the public at the back, then raise your arm and I will ensure that we repeat what is necessary. Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite the first of this evening's public speakers, Ian Carrott, please, and remind you have 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Yep. Good evening. My name is Ian Carrott. I live locally and own Clark's Farm adjacent to the entrance to the site. I'm speaking for many villagers who agree this development must be rejected due to significant concerns over road safety. More of them have recently registered their opposition or emailed the council, and I trust you've seen all these letters. East Street is an old and single-track Sussex sunken lane. I'm sure when you visited the site, you will have seen that visibility is limited by hedges and a blind bend heading west to east, just before the proposed entrance to the development. Vehicles and pedestrians, including families with small children, are forced to share the road with no pedestrian walkway. It is a regular route for horse riders, cyclists and walkers accessing the local footpaths. It has a 20-mile limit, but Mark, my colleague, will be describing how the limit is not adhered to. Crucially, the site is less than 150 metres from the local primary school. At peak times, particularly during school drop-off and pick-up, this stretch of road becomes especially busy and hazardous. You will now have seen our photographs emailed to each of you demonstrating this, and I know the school is very concerned about this new development. Unlike the Highways report, I know of 5 recent incidents. My neighbour was knocked off his feet by a car along this stretch of road. A lady was hit by a car on her way to the school with her child. A dog was hit by a car while being walked on a lead. The stone wall which separates the listed Naldritz farm from the road and directly opposite the proposed new entrance collapsed down 2 metres into the garden below where children play after a lorry had hit it. A lorry which could not get through due to congested traffic on East Street attempted a 3-point turn on the crossroads and removed the corner of the roof on the 19th century village house. You can sense how concerned we are about road safety along East Street already. In practical terms, even the construction vehicles required will adversely affect the road safety. The road is totally unsuitable for HGVs, and approving this development would significantly compromise public safety.
Could you
and in
bring
particular,
your comments to a conclusion, please?
Will. In particular, the safety of our children, please reject this proposal.
And my apologies for pronouncing your name incorrectly. Mark Minchell, have I pronounced that correctly? Apologies if I haven't. And you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Minchell. I'm also a neighbour within the West Hiltington area. I live in Hatch's house next door to the proposed site. I'm here to highlight the serious concerns that we all have about the proposed development of the 8 houses off East Street. As people from the village, this proposed scheme presents unacceptable risks both to residents and road users, and I strongly urge its refusal for the following reasons. The first one being pedestrian safety. East Street has no pavement. Pedestrians, including children walking to school and elderly residents, are forced to share the narrow road. With the entrance to the development offering poor visibility, the resulting increased traffic movements will create a serious hazard. Secondly, the dangerous access. The development's access road will drop 3.5 metres down onto East Street, so the visual you've just seen bears no resemblance to reality. The icy conditions that may affect that steep grading will make sure that that area becomes treacherous in those sort of types of conditions, significantly increasing the risk of vehicles skidding into traffic or pedestrians or horses, dogs in that area, whoever's passing. Third, the harm to the listed building. Naldret's farmhouse, grade 2 listed home, sits 2.5 metres below East Street, and the proposed houses standing 3.5 metres above will loom over it, compromising its historic nature and setting. Vehicle headlights leaving the development, if it goes ahead, will shine directly into its windows and garden, invading privacy and damaging the quality of life of that particular resident. Finally, waste collection. Refuse lorries won't be able to access the site, meaning residents will have to leave their bins on East Street, just adding to the other congestion down there with other bin issues within the area. And this will worsen the existing problems that we already have with nearby homes, creating both an eyesore and a hazard. So in summary, this proposal endangers pedestrians, creates an unsafe access point, harms a listed building, and offers no practical solution for waste collection. It's poorly conceived and, in our opinion, should be refused. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark Kirkdale, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. I wish to raise concerns about this application, particularly the adequacy of the transport documentation and its implications for highway safety and traffic impacts on East Street. East Street is a narrow rural residential road with a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's now 2025, yet the application relies on a May 2022 highways report and a November 2021 7-day traffic count. There is no reference to 9 months of traffic data gathered by the speed indicator device installed in June 2024. This newer data offers a much more accurate picture of the day-to-day traffic conditions, and it should have been included in the assessment. The March 22 transport statement reports 85th percentile speeds of 28 miles an hour and below, yet its appendix reveals more telling figures. 88% of vehicles travel between 19 and 50 miles an hour. 38% exceed 25 miles an hour, all on a road beside the development site with no pavements, no refuge areas and a 20-mile-an-hour limit. From June 24 to March 25, the speed indicator device recorded over 225,000 vehicles on East Street. 130,000 of those during weekdays between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's an average of 66 vehicles per hour, with some reaching speeds of over 40, even 50 miles an hour. Speedwatch records also show that 27% of vehicles exceed 24 miles an hour. All this within 150 metres of a school. These are not just numbers, they represent real risks and real people, children, families and elderly residents who walk this road every day. We're concerned that the March 22 transport statement, particularly the appendix speed data, was not fully considered against the 20-mile-an-hour limit when the highways team issued their no objection response. Without the inclusion of this more recent data, the evidence base does not present a complete or accurate picture of conditions on the ground. We therefore urge the committee to defer or reject the application until a thorough, up-to-date transport assessment is undertaken. One that reflects the actual traffic usage of each street, responds to local community concerns and takes seriously the safety of residents, especially our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Come back up later.
Yep.
Okay. Invite Laura Black, please. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, members. My name is Laura Black and I am an Associate Planner at SLR Consulting. The application is seeking full planning permission for 8 dwellings on a site that lies on the eastern edge of West Chiltington. We returned to
Sorry,
committee...
could you speak a little closer to the microphone? People may be struggling to hear you. Thank
We
you.
returned to committee tonight after the application was deferred at the last committee meeting due to members' concerns around the sustainability of the site. We understand the village shop has now closed, but clearly the best way to ensure that villagers can grow and thrive is by bringing forwards a proportionate and suitable amount of new housing so that future residents can support local services and facilities. Simply put, shops need footfall, and if there aren't enough people currently in the village to sustain a shop, then more are needed. The proposed development of 8 dwellings at East Street will enable the sustainable growth of West Chiltington and help to enhance the vitality of the village. Your policy officers have also advised that being categorised as a medium village in the Horsham district planning framework, it does have capacity for some development, and that other factors beyond provision of services and facilities should be considered, including the role the community itself can play in creating a sustainable settlement. Horsham District Council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and the new government's updated standard method for calculating housing need has resulted in almost a 50% increase in its housing requirement, therefore highlighting the desperate need for more housing in the district. Due to the housing land supply shortfall, the NPPF tilted balance test is that the council should grant planning permission unless the scheme affects a designated area or any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The consultees have confirmed there are no designated areas affected and there is no significant or demonstrable harm identified. The fact the site is allocated in the emerging local plan for 8 houses shows this consideration has already been made by the council. We have worked with your officers to ensure the site will blend into the location as much as possible and will result in a high quality scheme that relates well to the existing village. Therefore, we trust you will support your officers' recommendation to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Come back here. No. Okay, West Chiltington Parish Council. You have 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Fran Davis from West Chiltington Parish Council. There are so many so I have 7 points to make. West Chiltington Parish Council has drafted a neighbourhood plan which has provided 2 other sites, but this development is not in the draft neighbourhood plan. And although it is in the new HDC local plan, this has been paused. And as point 6.5 of the March committee report states, the local plan carries limited weight at this time. A proposal for 3 dwellings on this site was previously refused. And the subsequent appeal dismissed in 2016. This was partly due to the effect of the proposal on the character and appearance of the rural edge of West Chiltington, and partly due to the site being outside the built-up area boundary and in a countryside location, none of which has changed. The HDC consultation document dated 19th of February 25, referring to the new landscape master plan, states that the changes to the scheme overall do not address point 6, which is the magnitude of proposed change on the site and immediate surroundings has been assessed as overall medium. However, the assessment recognises that the adverse effects of the proposed development on approach to the settlement is major and unlikely to be mitigated any further than major or moderate. The same HDC consultation document also states that point 12 of the landscape architect report has only been partly addressed, which relates to the loss or removal of a line of trees, which is a key feature within the landscape and would have a major adverse effect on the character of the area. The sustainability section of the committee report dated April 25 diminishes the importance of a village shop and highlights other activities in the village. But to be clear, the loss of a village shop inevitably means more traffic driving to the next nearest one, which is over a mile away. The activities mentioned within the village are mostly held in the village hall, and all of these are an impossible walk in wet weather, It may show that it's simply a road only a mile away, but the hollow is an impossible walk, and the footpaths are impossible in wet weather. So again, necessitating vehicle movements. The limited public transport is exactly one bus per week to Horsham. Last year, West Chiltington Parish Council successfully undertook a drainage project through Operation Watershed to improve surface water flooding that occurred annually in East Street. However, the underground filming that was part of the operation also showed us clearly that the road is sinking under the weight of traffic and causing drainage pipes to crack. Surely, in approving developments such as this proposal, all consulted bodies need to consider future-proofing the sustainability of the built environment. In all the reports submitted to this planning application, barely addressed is the narrowness of the road and the reality of the increased traffic this development will cause, particularly being next to the primary school. East Street is simply a narrow village road, and this proposal lies exactly at the narrowest point, which necessitates single flow traffic only, meaning that cars have to wait in unofficial passing places or residents' driveways for others to pass at either end. We find it hard to believe that anyone could consider that this road could sustain a new development of this size.
Thank you. The officers.
Thank you. So the steep gradient that was mentioned is across the entire length of the site, not just at the entrance point. So the 3.5 metres is from the southernmost to the northernmost part of the site. So that's in terms of the steep gradient. So it's across the entire site. The refuse access has been demonstrated as being accessible and able to get into the site by way of the proposed Bellmouth junction into the site, and that has been assessed by the Highways Authority. The Council's Heritage Officer has assessed the proposal in terms of the listed building and the impact on the heritage assets. Yes, the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, I believe, is recent. I'm not sure when that was excuse me, introduced into the village. Just to address the appeal refusal reason, which went to the inspector for determination, and it was dismissed only on, which at the time was the council's ability to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, so it was contrary to the strategic policy. It wasn't the character or the sort of the rural location, which the inspector found no issues with. And I can't comment any more on the traffic. We have the Highways Officer comments, which have been referred to in the report.
Thank you. Do you want to comment on drainage? Okay. I'd like to invite the first ward councillor on this evening is Councillor Circus. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say, first of all, that I found it a novel idea from the agent who we heard from, that apparently a shop that is unprofitable and facing closure would apparently become profitable because of 8 new properties. That's an interesting take on the economics of the situation. I could make a joke there, but you'd probably tell me off for making it, so I won't make it. The post office conducted a survey of West Chiltington some years ago, and they concluded that whilst they were closing post offices in Horsham, I know that because I was the cabinet member for local economy at the time, and I remember speaking to camera about the closure of one of them. I think it was Queen Street. They were closing post offices in Horsham, but they concluded that for reasons of sustainability, there needed to be a post office in the old part of the town, of the village, and in West Chiltington Common. And when you consider how you would physically get from the old part of the village to West Chiltington Common, just simply saying it's a mile away, simply does not recognise the well, it is frankly impossible realistically to walk from the old village to West Chiltington Common. The reality is that the post office and the shop are closing. The owners are longing to move to the Isle of Wight. They are making a loss now. They've spent 4 years trying to sell the property with no success, and with a will, they wanted to sell it. The pub, frankly, is likely to close, and this is a different state of affairs to that which operated when we had the inspector's report. And therefore, to say that there are these facilities, and we've heard how there is one bus a week to Horsham, this is not now, if it ever was, a sustainable location. Even if it is a mile from a coffee van. That's rather amusing. The facts have changed. I made this point the other day, it sounds familiar. The facts have changed and the officers could have changed their mind. I do understand the way this works. Opinions are given by officers to developers at a pre-application point. And therefore, not unnaturally, the officers are reluctant to change their view. I can understand that because it's about professional reputation. But in this case, there has been a significant change of circumstances which would have enabled the officers to realistically change their recommendation.
Councillor Circus, the officers will give their decision based on their knowledge, professionalism and judgment, not on conversations they've had with a developer. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you, but let's just say I see things slightly differently. There are 3 other considerations. The access, as the speakers have drawn attention to, is appalling. The road is dangerous. I won't even travel. When I come up here to Horsham, I won't travel along East Street because in parts it is downright dangerous. Secondly, no reliance can be put on the local plan, the so-called emerging local plan, when the inspector, Mr. Fleming, thought in reality the plan wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Refused to consider it any further, stopped any consideration of it, and even now we do not have the inspector's comments on the deficiencies of that plan. What we do know, Chairman, is that he thought it was fundamentally unsound and legally questionable. Thirdly, in the emerging neighbourhood plan, to which I think some weight can be given, this site was rejected. It was very carefully considered and investigated by the parish council and rejected. And it grieves me that we now pay so little respect to neighbourhood plans and emerging neighbourhood plans that are produced by parish councils. I mean, when we get local government reorganisation, parish councils are going to become very important as a voice for local communities, and we are disrespecting them by showing no respect for what is in neighbourhood plans and in emerging neighbourhood plans. In short, Chairman, this is a thoroughly unsatisfactory application, thoroughly unsound. It is not it is not a sustainable location, and therefore I think we can reject arguments about tilted balance, and the committee, I hope, will reject this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. Councillor Denny.
I think at this point I'd like to come in about the status of the emerging local plan. It has not been found legally questionable. It has been paused pending the submission, a request for submission of further information. So no finding of from the planning inspector has been forthcoming so far, and I think it is disingenuous to suggest that there is at this point something matter with it and that it will be rejected.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. So firstly, I want to sort of note that as we know, I'm also a West Sussex County Councillor and I'm a Cabinet Member for Highways, but this Cabinet to Highways planning does not come under my remit, and I want to make that quite clear when I make the comments that I'm making. So firstly, the Bellway and the road safety. There's been an awful lot of good points made tonight about it, and I use this section of road quite frequently. The location where it is currently is extremely narrow, and it's bordered either side. This is where the Bellmouth is, and it's bordered either side by a passing way, which is actually other people's access and driveway. It's extremely narrow, and there is no pavement, and there is no place for pedestrians to move between them. And I think the pictures that we've been circulated make that very clear. And I do believe that, as commented by one of the speakers today, the data from the traffic conditions is the new data we have from the SID, that's the speed indicator device that's there, and also the speed watch, which is regularly out there at that spot, checking for speed and regularly taking and producing numbers of letters to people who are speeding, should have also have been considered. And I think that what we should remember, this is a very small planning application in terms for West Sussex. And given the fact that it was deferred for a site visit, I think it would have been useful to ask whether this was a desktop study or a site visit, because I think there's a number of things that have been missed here. And that includes the fact that the Hollows, which is an access, which it leads to, East Street leads to, is a sunken Saxon lane. Not only no pavement, but no verge. So it's literally a two-way lane with no pavement or verge. So if you're walking, you're on the road. So that's the first point to make. The second one is the East Street east of that Bellway is literally one way, no verge, no pavement at all. And I think that's important to note. I'm extremely concerned about any construction vehicles going down that road, and particularly even with that Bellmouth, because it would become ensuing chaos. And if this particular meeting is minded to give this planning permission, I think it needs to think very carefully about the hours in which it allows construction vehicles to move into that site, particularly around, in consideration, the school hours. Because the parents, it is pretty chaotic at dropping off and dropping off times. There's no two ways about it. I also want to mention something that the parish also mentioned too, which is around the Operation Watershed piece of work that was undertaken around surface water flooding on East Street. Now, interestingly, I did my own site visit to look at it, and I'd done so previously in connection with Operation Watershed. The surface water flooding that's coming down onto East Street is coming down. On the southwest corner of this particular site and field, and partly within their land and within highways, there is a corner with a drainage pipe coming out of it, which is a surface water attenuation drainage pipe that just sticks out and comes down into East Street. That is what's been causing major part of the issue. So it's surface water coming off that field. And I can't see anything in the conditions in here to dealing with surface water emanating from that field and what might happen when we build those houses on. I think very similarly about the issues about the driveway and the water running down the driveway. What about the water running down off that property underground onto the highway to create even more flooding than there is? And obviously there's a sinking green sand road, a Saxon Lane, the cracking of the pipes, etc. And if you've been down there in the wintertime when it's been flooding, especially especially on intense rainfall or when it's icy, it is particularly nightmarish. And I do think that there should have been some conditions around that and the potential impact that surface water flooding from the field would make on East Street. I then want to talk quickly about 6.85, about the draft neighbourhood plan, and I agree with all the comments that my colleague has made and also with the parish council. Then if we come to the amenities, again, I agree in terms of, the comments made about the shop. Definitely the pub has been through a number of hands in the last few years. It's not proved to be viable in every case, and quite frankly, I'm surprised it's actually still open at this moment in time. But good luck to the landlord for trying. And I suppose I'll keep it at that because a lot of comments have been made, but as I say, I'm particularly concerned about the traffic, and also the flooding emanating on East Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's quite a few points to respond to there. If I can cover, hopefully I'll cover as many as I can. On the traffic and access point, you asked the question, have the County Highways Authority undertaken a site visit? And looking at their response, it doesn't appear that they did undertake a site visit. That is not unusual. They have access to plenty of resources to make a valuable judgment as to the impacts of the development. Now, the application has been considered in accordance with Manual for Streets. 85th percentile speeds have been referred to before as the benchmarking for visibility displays, and the required visibility displays are being achieved at this site. In terms of traffic volumes, the anticipation based on the TRIX data that my colleague referred to was that in the AM peak there would be 7 vehicle movements, and the PM peak only 3, so 1 every 20 minutes. Across a day, a 12-hour period, 46 in total, so that's 1 every 15 minutes. So the volume of traffic entering and exiting this site is small, I would suggest. And obviously understanding the site constraints, the topography, the narrowness of the lane, it's inevitable that the driver would act carefully when entering and exiting the site, mindful that there may be pedestrians or other vehicles arriving. And that is in part informed why both the County Highways Authority and officers do not consider that highway safety is a reason to refuse this planning application. In terms of sustainability of the location in the context of what's happening with the post office, as my colleague set out on her first slide, it showed the range of facilities in the area, and it is appreciated that those within West Chiltington Common can only realistically be reached by car. However, there are public rights of way and footpaths which on clement days people would be able to access the village hall, the sports and community facilities that are there and elsewhere. Now, in terms of sustainable modes, the NPPF requires that you maximise the opportunity for sustainable transport, and it acknowledges that those opportunities vary between rural and urban areas. And having regard to the sustainability hierarchy of the district, which includes obviously West Chiltington, our view remains that looking at it as a package of local facilities and infrastructure, the loss of the post office, whilst regrettable, is not determinative to say that this is not a sustainable location for a small additional number of homes. I would add into the mix a reference has been made to the West Chiltington local plan, which is at pre-examination stage. It's passed through its Regulation 16 public consultation, but it carries limited weight. Nevertheless, that includes an allocation for 15 homes just round the corner from this site. So clearly there is a judgment to be made as to whether that 15 plus this 8 remains sustainable. The Vice's officers, particularly in light of our housing land supply position, is that when you pull everything together here, our view clearly is that this is a development where the tilted balance applies and the benefits do outweigh the harm. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis, yes.
Yeah, I didn't get an answer on the surface water issues that we have emanating from that field.
Yes, and I realised as soon as I turned the microphone off that I hadn't answered that question. I've just been looking at the drainage strategy again, and the drainage strategy is clearly to make sure that runoff does not increase from existing levels. It does propose a manner of soakaways on the site and has been reviewed by the League Local Flood Authority and deemed to be acceptable. There are conditions As I recall on the application, which do require further details, I'll just clarify that. Condition 8 I'm being pointed to here, which says that no development shall commence till a drainage strategy has been submitted and approved. Evidence of infiltration testing undertaken to BRE standards must be provided to demonstrate infiltration is feasible. So therefore there's an opportunity here to capture the concerns that you've raised from water being effectively piped out of the corner of the field onto the public highway, and we can add an informative or certainly something to this condition to make sure that the decision makers are aware that this is something that must be considered as part of the final drainage strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Manton, do you wish to add anything?
Thank you, Chairman, very kind. Before I add something, I would just like to ask a question of our solicitor following Councillor Circus's point about the local plan. I understand the inspector has asked for more information, which I understood was sent some considerable time ago to the inspector. So I'm not sure when this local plan is going to proceed. Could she enlighten me on that, please?
Sadly not.
I would just add in response to that question, clearly the local plan has been paused. The examination hearings didn't look site by site as to which sites were sustainable or not. It was more of a higher level initial concern around water neutrality and the impact on housing numbers that would be delivered in the plan. As my colleague has said, at the moment we still do not have a response from the examiner, so therefore the plan continues to carry limited weight. And I wouldn't agree with an argument that the plan has found this site to be unsound. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Then in that case, I would make the point that this site is not in the neighbourhood plan, and the parish council are obviously, by dint of that, against it. I still make the point that this site is unsustainable. I've heard that you've talked about the other site up and around the corner. That's on a much wider road to which has a junction with East Street. So I would still say that the road outside
East Street.
the plot here, East Street, and the access is not sustainable in that respect. The hedgerow that's across that hedgerow there between the two, at the bottom here where it says E for East Street, that big tree there, and then going to the left, there's like a hedgerow along there. Can we be assured that we will not lose that hedgerow? Because it's important for, it will have if it was removed and lost, it would have a significant detrimental effect on current wildlife. So if that's on the plan and this committee didn't to approve this, then I would like a condition to make sure that that hedgerow remains undisturbed. Just a couple of points. Could you go back to the slide with the two big circles on that show where the services are? Okay. Could somebody tell me this one bus a week, and I presume that's correct, it is one bus a week, where is that bus stop in relation to the site?
Oh, it's by the school, isn't it?
It's opposite the pub.
Is it opposite the pub?
Opposite the pub.
Opposite the pub. Okay, thank you for that. The coffee van that used to be run by a gentleman called Shane has ceased trading,
Yeah.
And is no longer there.
Forgot to say that.
So I remain unconvinced about the sustainability. As my friend here mentioned, the Hollow is a narrow lane, overgrown over the top. It's almost like a tunnel when you go down it. It's not a tunnel, but it's almost like a tunnel with overgrown trees. So it is actually quite dark and steep-sided. with no footpath. And I believe that covers all the points I had for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open this now to other members of the committee. Does anyone wish to speak on this application? Councillor Trollope, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I did do a site visit by myself the other day, and I found the residents there to be very cohesive and a very strong community spirit, and they did relate to me very strongly that their concerns about the impact of this site. And whilst I do have to actually thank them for these in my hand here, they helped me find my headphones, which I had lost. So they really are very helpful and considerate people. And yeah, when I look at the situation, primarily the school, it comes across to me is that a lot of the concerns that we're having with the traffic is to do with the school and the impact on the drop-off and pick-up time. But there's a part of me that's also saying that it's the parents' responsibility to manage that. I don't see why we should have to try to affect that by either accepting or not accepting this proposal. If there's issues with traffic, then the parents could park in that church car park, which I think is far less than a kilometre away from the school. Or they could actually walk from their homes, because I think if I look on that concentric circle, I don't know the exact boundaries of this school, but I think a lot of the parents must live within a kilometre of the actual school itself. I'm not sure of that. I'd need to do a bit more research. I did contact the school. I wasn't able to get a response in time for this meeting. And also to reflect sort of the points that Councillor Serkis and a few others made. Yeah, there's only 8 houses, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you say that, you know, we can't increase housing because things are closing down. Well, they're going to be closing down if you don't stimulate the demand. So the coffee man and the pub and the shop and even the bus services, I mean, 8 extra houses isn't going to solve the problem, but it's a step in the right direction. I am concerned, though, still about the school. There's still a part of me that thinks, you know, that the site traffic will be an issue. I would hope that common sense would prevail amongst the people driving these construction vehicles, that they wouldn't try to drive through at school time. But this is what I would ask the officers. Is it reasonable for us to actually formalize that and add this as a condition, or at least an advisory, that we could prohibit any sort of site traffic maybe an hour before and after both the school drop-off time and the school pickup time during the school year? It seems like a reasonable request, and I think it would go a long way to mitigating. I mean, let's face it, the parents will still drive, even if we tell them not to drive. So that issue will remain. But I think we could mitigate the impact somewhat by ensuring that they don't try to, drive in and out at these crucial times.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Trollope.
On that last point, yes, we have condition 3, which is for a construction management plan. And I think it's a very sensible point that's been raised by a couple of councillors around ensuring that construction vehicles do not overlap with peak school drop-off and pick-up times. And we can take that away as an additional point to add into condition 3, so we ensure that it's clearly laid out and agreed when construction vehicles and traffic can arrive and leave the site. Thank you.
Is that something we have to vote on, or is that just a given that it'll happen?
First and foremost, we need to have a proposal and a seconder, and then we can vote.
Okay.
Amendment to the condition.
I would like to propose it.
Okay, just for clarity, what is it exactly you're proposing?
The proposal that there would be no site traffic both an hour before and an hour after both the school drop-off and pick-up times on school days. I could go to the website and find out what the exact school hours are, but they're probably 8:40 or something like that.
Okay, Councillor Dennis.
Can I make a suggestion? It's not no site traffic, because it's the HGVs we're concerned about. So it's the no HGV traffic when you're talking about those hours, because otherwise, otherwise it's going to mean that they won't be there till 10 and they'll have to go at 2, everybody, or do you see what I'm saying? Is that not what you're saying?
Yes, no, I would accept that. No, I mean, it's the big vehicles that I'm thinking of.
HGVs.
Not the small car that somebody's going to work with.
Sorry. Okay, Councillor Bainham.
I agree with the principle of what Councillor Trollope's saying, but I think an hour before and an hour afterwards, twice a day, is excessive, and I would have thought 30 minutes would have been sufficient each side.
Okay.
Chair, I'm worried that this motion might fall foul for lack of certainty, because if you're going to talk about school drop-off time, that's possibly staggered. I don't know anything about this school. I do know that schools sometimes run breakfast clubs. Are you going to include that as one drop-off zone, and then another drop-off zone being, people that don't go to breakfast club? What happens about people that have after-school clubs? I mean, when exactly are you talking?
I was speaking of the principal drop-off time and the principal pick-up time. I would happily, we could maybe iron out the exact detail at a later stage.
That needs to be captured in the wording, Councillor Trollope, and I'm just mindful that it's a little vague at the moment, and we would need to tighten that up.
Could I pass over to my colleague Dennis for some advice, perhaps?
Thank you. I think what we're saying is, and I'm listening to my colleagues on my left as well, just for some advice too, is what we're saying is no HGV movements when there is what I call, I think we'd have to check with the school, but if we checked with the school, their main opening times and closing times. And I would use the hour. Can I just also make the point while I'm here, is that most of the pupils that go to that school are either rural, they live in places like Thacombe, etc., or they live on in West Chilts Common, which means they would have, if they were walking, they'd have to walk up the hollows, which we've just said is, you just do not see people walking on the hollows, full stop, never mind anyone with children. So I think that makes the point very clear that that's why most people drive there. And there is a long wait there, I have to say. I see people parking from 2:30 and it's usually disappeared by 3:15 in the afternoon. But 3 o'clock, I think, is the close. But I don't know I can't determine it.
Okay. Sorry, I do have their opening times.
Sorry, can we... carry on then. Opening times. But we need to be...
Chair, I'm mindful that one of the tests of a planning condition is that this needs to be necessary and it needs to be enforceable. I'm worried that when you say opening times, I mean schools open generally for the staff to go in way before the pupils. I still don't think that you are vocalising what you really want here, and if you don't do that, then this will be rendered possibly unenforceable, possibly found not necessary. These things can be challenged, and we need to ensure that this is really what you're envisaging. So, I mean, a school might open to the cleaners at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? Sorry. I will come to you in a moment. We have a condition here that the officer will read out.
My advice, members, is that if you wish to add in an extra part to the construction management plan, that the specifics are addressed at a slightly later stage, perhaps if necessary in consultation with local members. So my advice would be that an extra line could take the form of details of the timing of HGV movements having regard to the school opening and closing times. And then all the issues around when the school opens and closes, what is a reasonable time, etc., can be ironed out at that point in time.
Yes, based on the pupil drop-off and pick-up times.
The proposal is that we put an extra line to condition 3, as read out by the officer. Yeah, if you could read that again, please.
Yeah, so it would be effectively part 5 to condition 3, requiring details on the timing of HGV movements having regard to the school opening and closing times.
No, sorry, not the closing and opening times, but the school, the student drop-off and pick-up times.
No.
Because if a teacher comes to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, that's out of scope. It's when the whole idea is to mitigate the impact when there's a lot of children on the streets.
So the last bit would read, having regard to student pick-up and drop-off times.
Thank you, yes.
Councillor Manton. Okay. I'm not surprised, Councillor Manton.
I'm not well, sir,
No.
Mr. Chairman. In consultation with the ward members.
Yes.
So the motion would be to add part 5 to condition 3, requiring details of the timing of HGV movements having regard to student pick-up and drop-off times and in consultation with local members.
We're voting on the amendment today. Are all members clear of that on that condition? Change it to condition 3, and we will vote on changes condition 3 first. I believe we had a... You're happy with that, Councillor Troll?
I am happy with the wording.
Fine. Councillor Dennis, you're happy to second that?
Point of order. I want to be clear that we are now voting on this amendment, not on the substantive motion to accept the application. Correct? Good.
Absolutely correct. I did make that point. We are voting on the modification to the condition, not on the actual substantive motion. Okay. All those in favour for the change to the condition?
The first condition passed.
Okay. Any against?
16 for.
Any abstentions? No. Therefore, the amendment to the condition has been passed. We are now going to proceed to vote on the substantive motion, which is to approve Planning Commission. Sorry? Noel, yes.
Well, I believe Councillor Fisher's been waiting to ask a question, and I would like to ask one as well.
My question was answered, but I don't feel we've had a full debate because we've only heard from the ward councillors. And
Did invite members to comment after the ward members.
yes, but I don't feel that had finished yet.
Well,
So
nobody
what's the
put
point?
their hand up to make a comment. But if you wish to make... Sorry, I've asked members if they would like to join the debate after the ward councillors. Nobody, Councillor Trollope, put the hand up, but I will come back to the debate again. Which members would like to comment on this application?
I just wanted to register the concerns about the proximity of the school and the narrowness of the lane and the inadequacy, it seems, of the highway survey that has been done, particularly with a view to the currentness of that survey. So I just wanted to say I have concerns about that because one child's life is worth everything, basically. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members wish to comment? Councillor Knowles, and I'll come to you in a moment. I think Councillor Knowles.
Chairman, It came up earlier in one of the presentations about the lack of access for the refuse lorries. Is that correct? Will they not be able to access the site to collect bins?
I'll just refer back to the visibility displays that we have, because they do show the refuse vehicles which sweep into the site.
Thank you. Yes. And can I ask what the timeline is for?
We don't know, unfortunately.
Is it possible to find out?
Yes, but not in the next few minutes. But what I advise, these surveys were carried out within 3 to 4 years ago. There's not, to my best of my knowledge, a clear marker that says you must update surveys within a certain period of time, like there is, for instance, on ecology matters. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, can I ask why the more recent traffic figures were not included in the reports?
No, we haven't had sight of that data, so.
Sorry, I'll come to you in a minute. Councillor Knoll, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I did indicate quite a long time ago I wanted to speak. Couple of things. First of all, did we get an answer to Councillor Manton's request to have a condition added regarding the hedgerow at the front of the site?
Yes, if I can just pick that one up. The hedgerow at the front is actually on highways land. So if I go back to the site plan, which is the red line here, it sits, the site itself sits just behind that verge where the hedgerow, which I think Councillor Manton is referring to. So it's on highways land. The planting that is shown on the site plan is within the site, and that would be subject to a landscaping condition, which is condition 15. There would be some cutting back to enable the visibility displays to be delivered on site, which again I'm going to scoot back to this one. You can see the pink line, which is the visibility display. So vegetation would need to be managed within that. And that pink area is the highways demise. So that's West Sussex County Council owned highways land. So the highways, the landscaping condition would pick up on new mitigatory planting within the site.
Thank you. My second question is, this is really in relation to the ward members who have quite obviously, and I went on the site visit and I was very aware of it, but pointing out quite obviously the very narrow width of E Street. We seem to very quickly whizzed through the photographs that you have of E Street. Could we go back to that so members can look at E Street and see what the width is? So the top pictures give a visual of the current width of the lane, is that right?
Yes, so that's opposite Noldret's barn and the site.
And the construction vehicles and the subsequent waste refuse vehicles are going to have to make a 90-degree turn across this lane in order to access the site.
Correct. So they would make the most of the visibility and the access into the site. So the new access way.
So can you point out? Oh, I see. which is the actual point of access then on these photos?
So it is almost directly opposite the barn, so that the roadway widens out a little bit there,
Yeah,
and the access is almost immediately opposite there.
So it's to the immediate right of the second top photo to the right,
Yes,
is that right?
that's right.
Yeah, so it is very, very narrow. It looks very, very narrow to me. Okay, finally, we had the trips of 7 in the morning and 3 in the evening were mentioned. How were they calculated? Are they calculated through a standard formula, depending upon the bedrooms that are in the houses? I mean, we have a multi-bedroom site of 8 houses. How do we calculate only 7 a.m. trips and 3 p.m. trips?
So this is calculated based on the TRIGS database, which is a national database looking at trip generation in different circumstances across the country. I'm just looking at the transport assessment here, looking at the criteria that were used. And it talks about under land use residential, sites in England and Wales as you'd expect, weekday survey, sites edge of town, suburban locations, and parameters 6 to 15 units. And that's come up with the figures of 7 movements in the morning and 3 in the PM, and those are in the PM peaks. So the AM peak is 8 till 9 AM and the PM is 5 till 6.
And is this considered suburban, or is it considered rural?
I'd suggest it's clearly more rural than perhaps suburban, but that's to make a judgment as to how many trips there would be. But the data here, which is supported by the Highways Authority as robust, is suggesting 7 in the AM peak, which you'd presume would be people going to work or taking children to school who aren't clearly at school opposite. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You've answered my questions. Thank you.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. I just wanted to express my surprise that there hasn't been a new survey of traffic, given that there's been a material change in the speed limit from 30 to 20. I'm a big fan of 20 mile an hour speed limits, as probably many people know, but there are some dangers around that, in that maybe children and parents might feel safer, and if people aren't drivers aren't adhering to it, which it sounds from the stats that haven't been included here, then that could really cause some serious issues. So that's a concern from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manton, you had your hand up earlier, sorry. Oh, okay, Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, just looking at these pictures. So are you is it actually saying then that the hedging, so if we look at the top left picture and the hedging opposite the barn, which is a hedging to the land, but it's on highways land, is that expected to go, that hedging?
You'll have to.
Is that what we're saying? It's not actually increasing the road width, it's actually just creating a verge if you do, but you're taking all that hedging away. That's just a question. And then on the 2 pictures here on the bottom right, it sort of shows sort of hedging there, well, sort of hedging, very low hedging, but it actually belies the fact that it's not a ditch behind there, it's actually really a pond, an antuation pond, a natural one that's been created by this Operation Watershed work that's coming off that corner of the field. And my concern was it's quite narrow there, and if someone's forced off by a lorry, they'd end up in a ditch, a very small pond ditch, which would be very deep.
There would need to be some vegetation reduction within that highways land, as you can see in the pink visibility display on that top graphic. Be reduced so it maintains the clear sight lines over oncoming traffic along East Street.
Councillor Circus.
I live in a road that's a single lane, And the problem is, if you have large vehicles moving out into the lane, getting them to turn can be very difficult. And the only way you're going to achieve it in that location, as has been pointed out or implied, is you will have to cut back massively on the vegetation on both sides of the entrance so the vehicle can get a start to turn before it gets to the road. That's the reality of this. So it's all very well saying we'll have a condition to preserve the hedging and so forth, but if this development is to go ahead, there will have to be a substantial cutting back so that large vehicles can start the turn before they get to the road. Otherwise, it will be almost impossible for them to actually join the road because it is a single track road. Sorry, Chairman.
Just clarify, the image in front of you at the very bottom there does show the visibility splay in the blue writing, and that shows the cutback of the hedgerow both sides. So does get cut back by a fair chunk, but also there's the reinforcement planting that my colleague has referred to thicken up again, because it is important that the landscape character is retained in terms of it being a well hedged and protected site, and obviously the sunken lane, which is important to the community as a neighbourhood plan draft policy as well. So that has been factored in, and we do have condition 15 that requires details of the cutback as well as the reinforcement planting. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Manton.
Thank you, Chairman. Now I'm ready. Sorry. What Adrian has just told us, I think I understand, is the blue line he's referring to the one that just touches the 5 little bushes below where it says private drive? Because
no, that's a black line that touches there. The blue line is angled. So
blue line is the very, very faint one just below that. Okay, much clearer here, thank you.
Yes, it's literally just above the number 2.4 by 3.36.
Yes, so I'm told that those bushes that are above the black line are on site, and to the south of those is the hedgerow on the land owned by West Sussex Highways. So this clearly shows that, to my mind, all the ancient hedgerow and wildlife on that lower blue line is going to be cleared away. Is that not the case?
There would be some cutting back, certainly. I wouldn't suggest it would be cleared away.
What's some cutting back mean? Please quantify this for me.
Well, effectively, there needs to be trimming back of the branches of the hedgerow in order to create the visibility splay. Now, clearly, if it transpires that there's significant uprootings required, as I said, we've got the condition, we've got reinforcement planting there, and because it's highways land, this doesn't mean to say that there can't be reinforcement planting on the remaining part of the highways land. So we feel that through the discharge of condition 15, we can get the necessary details of where the stems are for the hedgerows that are existing, what the cutback would look like, and where reinforcement needs to be.
Chair, just a point of clarity. You cannot condition something that is outside the red line, though. You must be clear about that the landscape condition for 15 is what goes on within the application site. If West Sussex Highways choose to cut back the hedge, that is on their land and it is a matter for them, and it is not within your remit to condition it because it is outside the application site.
So the applicant will not be entitled to remove that hedging?
I can't comment on things that happen outside the application site, and sometimes if there's an agreement struck between the developer and the Highways Authority, that is not a matter for us, and I cannot comment on it.
Okay, thank you. Any... Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if I could have an officer response to the regularity, or whether it's right that we rely on a traffic survey done when there's been a material change since that. Thank you. Sorry, traffic, the change in the speed limit, and relying on a report that is so old and outdated. Thank you.
Well, that is a matter of judgment. The traffic surveys were carried out when it was a 30-mile-an-hour limit, and the majority, 85 percentile, shows that it was under 30 miles an hour at that time. So the view of officers that whilst, yes, it has moved to a 20-mile-an-hour limit, that would clearly slow traffic even further, thereby making arguably a safer arrangement. I appreciate you have a slightly different angle on that, but I think it's a matter for individual judgment.
Thank you.
Okay. Any final comment from the members? One final comment from the ward councillor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just to note that we haven't really talked about the ecology of the site, and the fact that this site is probably richer than the one that we previously debated, which was further on, just up onto West Chiltington Common at Smock Alley. And yet this is, from what we're seeing here, is supposed to be richer in ecology, and yet we've had no ecology debate. I can see there's quite a lot of conditions, but I just want to say at this moment, I know it's last minute, but we haven't made any comments. I thought somebody else would pick this up, about the ecology of the site and will it be protected. And, you know, we're talking about not just the sort of the normal ecology that we see being abandoned. I still can't get my head around the fact that, you know, we build something on a field and still think there's going to be ecology up. It's probably going to take 30 to 50 years for that to happen. But I'm thinking particularly around the bats, etc. And the other boxes, I think for foxes, etc. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what else was in there. I read this about a week or so ago. I don't know if anyone else has got any comments, but I just thought I'd mention that too.
Thank you. The ecology impacts have been assessed by the Council's ecology officer in relation to protected and priority species, so bats, and they are satisfied with the details that have been submitted, and that no further habitat surveys are required over and above what's been provided, and they are happy that the proposed ecological mitigations are satisfactory, and the landscape and ecological management plan to ensure that proposed habitats are managed appropriately. So it has been assessed. Thank you.
No, I'm not going to prolong the conversation any further. We've discussed this over 2 meetings for over 2 hours. Okay, we've had a site visit as well, and therefore I'm going to move that we take the vote on this now. I've been generous with the time with the local board members and other members as well. So I'm moving that we take the vote on this substantive motion, which is to approve planning permission subject to appropriate conditions. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Councillor Clark, could you raise your arm? Sorry, just so we can see you from the other side of the room. All those against?
I have 7 for and 8 against currently.
Abstentions? 1.
1 abstention.
Sorry, could you repeat the...
I had 7 for, 8 against and 1 abstention.
Okay. Therefore it's refused, isn't it? For what reason? Sorry? For what reason? Yes. Okay, the application has been refused. We now need to understand why it has been refused. And I'd like the member to put forward a motion as to why that has been refused. Sorry, can we just be clear? Okay, it is not for the committee as a whole to produce the reason for refusal. I'd like the ward, sorry. Okay.
So
Yeah.
pick your...
Do you want to explain that to the, please? Thank you.
Yeah, the original motion, as set out in the report, was to approve planning permission, and that's been defeated. But that does not in itself constitute a refusal of the application. It now goes back to you to remove move an alternative motion to refuse and set out the planning reasons for that. So we need somebody to propose that motion and somebody to second that motion.
Chairman, I seem to remember on a previous occasion. Yes, and the learned legal officer helped the relevant ward councillor to draft the appropriate reasons for refusal on the basis of the points that have been raised during the debate. As far as I'm quite happy to propose refusal. As far as I'm concerned, I would argue that in the light of the situation that now prevails, or certainly will prevail very soon, it is not a sustainable location. The post office were quite right when they concluded that taking away the post office was unsustainable, because they did a better survey of sustainability than to some extent has happened prior to considering this tonight. So sustainable, what? Sustainable, we do not believe it's not sustainable. Harm to wildlife.
Chair, might I...
It's against the emerging neighbourhood plan.
Sorry, just a moment.
I think we need to be mindful that vague references to unsubstantiated allegations should be avoided because they're not considered to be reasonable in terms of decision making. Things need to be backed up by proper data. Which data are we referring to when we're talking about impact on wildlife here, given that the council's ecology officer has already set out findings in the report?
Thank you. Okay, we now have an alternative motion to refuse and the reason for doing so, and the officer will read out this motion.
So the motion is: insufficient information has been provided having regard to updated traffic surveys that the development would not result in a highway safety issue, and that the site is in a sustainable location to maximise active travel in non-car modes, contrary to Policy 40 of the HDPF and paragraphs 110, 115 and 116 of the NPPF.
Are all members clear? I need a proposal, don't I? Who will propose that motion? Councillor Serkis, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Dennis, thank you. Therefore, we will hold a vote on this particular motion and reason for refusal. All those for the motion, please show. All those against?
5 against.
Oh, you would, wouldn't you? Yes, thank you. Any abstentions?
2
Sure?
abstentions.
It's 5 for and 5 against. Is that correct?
9.
No.
4.
9 for,
5 against,
5
and
against,
2
2 abstentions.
Sorry.
And Councillor Lambert is unable to
Yeah.
vote because she left the chamber during the course of the debate.
Therefore, the motion is carried and the reasons for refusal of the planning permission. Thank you. Sorry? Another one. Do you need a break, Councillor Dennis? Right. Right, we will take... who else needs a tea or a drink? No? Right. Alan, oh, you're leaving, aren't you, Alan? Okay, Councillor Menton. Okay, Joy, Councillor Dennis, you want to make your tea, go and make your tea. No, okay. We're going to carry on, Councillor Finnegan. We're going to carry on. Thank you.
It whipped away at the last minute.
Oh, I thought it was 5-all there,
No, 9.
Oh, I miscounted. Sorry.
Similar. Don't worry, we wouldn't have let you. It's because teachers were there.
Okay, I just lost Judy. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Agenda item number 7, which is DC 23-1602, and it's Grainingfold, Horsham Road, 5 Oaks. Please could the officer make the application?
The application site forms a parcel of land at the eastern edge of 5 Oaks, which is an unclassified settlement. Under current policies, 5 Oaks does not have a defined settlement built-up area edge, and therefore the site lies within the countryside. Under the draft local plan, 5 Oaks would be defined as a secondary settlement, and as you can see from the image in front of you, the policy proposes a settlement edge which includes the application site and the petrol filling station, car sales on the opposite side of the road. The site is currently occupied by a steel portal barn used to store farm machinery, with the barn forming the garden boundary of Hatari to the west. The site and street view images show the barn seen in the context of the established development within 5 Oaks. Access to the site would be off the A264, onto a shared farm track that continues south to Grainingfold Farmhouse and Grainingfold. Picking up on paragraph 6.22 in the report, the recent speed limit changes in 5 Oaks now mean that the access point is subject to a 30-mile-per-hour limit, not the national speed limit. The existing barn benefits from confirmation under Class Q that it could be converted into 2 3-bedroom dwellings, as confirmed in December 2023. A Habitat Regulations application to secure the Section 106 agreement, which confirms that the water neutrality mitigation measures would achieve the required water neutral position associated with the Class Q conversion, has also been approved as of November 2024. Pre-commencement conditions for the Class Q conversion have also been approved as of January 2025. These therefore form a material consideration that the conversion of the existing barn can be undertaken under permitted development rights and is effectively ready to go, representing a viable fallback position. Officers note that there is a longer planning history associated with the site, but these are not material or relevant to the current application as they have now expired or have been refused or considered under previous planning policies. The proposed site plan has now been amended to set plot 1 further away from the A264 and the boundary with Hatari. The proposed layout would provide each new dwelling with amenity space and parking. The proposal is for the development of the site, demolition of the barn and the erection of 2 detached properties. The proposed development would achieve a rural vernacular development of 2 modestly proportioned dwellings exhibiting a barn and a cottage style that is suited to the hamlet characteristics of Five Oaks. The proposal is recommended for approval on the grounds that there is a viable fallback position which represents a realistic alternative option that would otherwise be implemented on the site. The proposed development would increase the built footprint within the site over and above the Class Q conversion by 16 square metres. A number of planning conditions are set out in the officer report in relation to the size of parking spaces, landscape, cycle parking provision and waste collection provisions, and to secure suitable details of the boundary alongside Hatari. The proposal would utilise a rainwater harvesting, filtration and storage system to achieve water neutrality, with a number of conditions to secure an adequate water quality and appropriate testing and maintenance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are no public speakers for this particular item, so I move to the ward councillors on this item, and Councillor Bailey.
Thank you very much, Chair. So what we have here is a choice between a rather uninspiring barn conversion, if you ask me, and 2 pretty standard houses. There are objections put forward from the public consultations in the paperwork, none of which I think hold a lot of water, frankly. The countryside location outside of the built-up area, well, technically it is, but we've just seen it's an adjunct to what already is there. Loss of privacy to Hatari House next door, and I think all these letters of rejection probably came from the residents of that house, I would suspect, but I don't know. Well, there's been some movement within the planning of the actual location of the places to address that to some extent. Increased footprint and overdevelopment of the site. Well, the site has already been approved for development by the barn conversion, so I don't really think that's much of an issue. Noise levels, there may be, but once again, this is not more people than would have been there under the previous one, and I think you get more noise out of the A264 going past than you would from the houses. I'm not sure about the root protection to the boundary hedge. I think I'm hoping from the officers that is something that's addressed, and the water neutrality has already been accepted. So on those, and then the parish council have objected as well, and they felt there were, for environmental reasons, it wasn't a suitable thing to demolish a building which doesn't need to be demolished. But you're just replacing it with something else. It's going to be, I don't think that, I mean, with all due respect to Billingshurst Parish Council, I don't think that's a reason that will really sort of materially affect what this committee should decide. And the councillors continue to have concerns about the lack of facilities for residents, as Five Oaks is a small hamlet. Well, that is the case. It doesn't have many facilities. It has a small Spar grocery shop attached to the petrol station, and it's a great place if you want to buy a car, because there's a big car showroom opposite. And the scale of proposed development will have a negative impact on the neighbours. Well, you know, as we've already seen, there is already planning permission for the fallback, so that doesn't really apply. So with all that, I mean, you won't be surprised to hear that I'm in favour of supporting this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Trollope, do you have anything to add?
I'll try not to repeat anything that Councillor Bainham has said. I did do a very quick site visit as it was on the way to this meeting. So all I had to do was stop and park and have a look. And I agree that the barn is absolutely unappealing. I didn't see any architectural merit to it either. I think there was a concern that one of the houses thought they might be overlooked, but I think they'll actually be less overlooked and they'll have increased amount of light, it said somewhere in that report. So I think all in all it seems like a nice little and easy thing to approve. I do have a little bit of concern. I know it's not going to be something that can be done in the plan, but maybe an informative of some description, that I did park my car across the street from the petrol station, and then I had to walk quite perilously along the 264 to get to where the site entrance is going to be. I was, thank goodness, wearing a high vis, but I did get sprayed by a couple of cars coming past as I did so. So I don't know what plans there are for some sort of a pavement between the site entrance up to, somewhere across the street from the petrol station. Because I can just see that, for them, if they decide that they do need a quick thing of milk from the spa, that it's quite, at the moment, it would be a perilous walk to do so. So my question is there an informative that we could add? Would that have any impact or any chance of actually affecting anything that county might do?
Okay, do you want to come back on that? We are coming back to you, Councillor Trollope.
Thank you. All the time I've been speaking without the thing on.
There's no space on the highway looking at the street view images there to provide that extra additional section of footway to serve the two dwellings. So I think in terms of proportionality, it's not something that highways would have requested.
It's not concerning enough to refuse the application, but I do think that they will never feel comfortable walking to that petrol station. I'm quite confident in traffic. I cycle in it all the time, and I've cycled up and down that road. I do get nervous cycling on that road. It's just, I don't know, it feels like something needs to be done about it.
I think, Councillor, whilst it's a worthy suggestion, certainly, I think looking from Street View here, that the length of footway that's required, the works that may be outside of county highways land, means that we would suggest that would be a disproportionate request of an application. The best and informative would be for an applicant to explore with the Highways Authority, but I'd be sure that would be a 99.9% chance that wouldn't go any further.
Well, there is one potential workaround, and I would need a map of the site if we could get it. There is a public right-of-way that where I parked. If you walk up around it, it doesn't quite get to the site though. It gets you kind of close, and then there's a farmer's land. I don't know whether or not there could be some sort of public right-of-way created or extended or somehow materialized between the actual site location. Well, yeah, but there's still two houses where people live in.
Just.
Oh, I understand. Sorry.
Yes, my colleague is just referring to this image in front, which shows in green the right-of-way, and it's probably quite faint, but just to the right-hand side of the red line site is a sort of access way. It looks like that falls outside of the land ownership of the applicants here, so therefore making a right-of-way would be very challenging, they would suggest, without the landowner's consent. But it does appear that there is a potential route there informally for occupiers to be able to use the right-of-way to access the petrol station and the centre of Five Oaks.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure what else can be said on it. I don't want to dwell on it.
Okay, thank you. Open the debate to other members. Any members wishing to comment? Councillor Croker.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start off by and apologising to the officer for the question. How do the ridge heights compare with these houses as to the barn? Well, while you're thinking about that, the reason I'm asking is if you approach it from the, where are we, northeast, it's quite a prominent building. And it'd be interesting to know that, and I apologise, I should have dug it out earlier. And at the risk of multitasking, I note that you said the earlier applications and indeed the planning appeal were not relevant. I think it's what you said. I'm not sure why, because to my view, some of the comments the inspector made on the 2015 application are still relevant. In particular, if I can find it again, and just read you the conclusion, if I may, Chair. It's fine.
Yep, go ahead.
The proposed development, and this is talking about 2 houses on that site instead of the 1 barn, would provide a modest benefit of 2 additional houses to the local housing supply. However, this would be outweighed by the site's location in the countryside, outside the boundary of any built-up area, and I appreciate we've covered that, which would be inappropriate for the proposed development and its harm to the character and appearance of the area, in clear conflict with the development plan as a whole, as well as the framework. And those were his reasons for refusing the appeal. Now, I appreciate the housing was slightly different, but it's still 2 houses on that site.
I think the current application is assessed with a view of the material fallback position of the barn conversion, which wasn't in place at the time of the previous appeal decision 2015. And subsequent applications have also not been at the time where there's been that fallback of a Class Q, or they've had the pre-commencement conditions satisfied, or they've had the HRA to secure the water neutrality mitigation measures in place. And that's the difference between this application and the ones that have preceded it.
Councillor Croker, yes.
Sorry, if I may come back on that. I've got a feeling there was a 2014 planning application, but I'm afraid I can't find it at the moment, that was for a barn conversion. I might be wrong though.
There has been quite a lengthy history on the application site, you are correct. But in terms of the current application, what is relevant to it is the preceding Class Q and the HRA and the discharge of the pre-commencement conditions. So those 3 separate applications together render that Class Q conversion entirely viable and ready to go on this site. And therefore the current planning application is considered with that in mind.
In response to your question around heights, the existing barn is 5.4 metres. Plot 1 is 7.4, plot 2, 7.2.
Thank you for those answers. So the housing will be more prominent. And I think where I struggle with this is I accept that Class Q gives you the right to have a dwelling containing 2 households on that site. But it doesn't say they can be in separate houses. They have to be in the barn. That's where I'm coming from, I think. Thank you.
Well, I think the consideration here, councillors, is which is the preferable scheme for people to reside in and the impacts on the surrounding landscape and character, etc. And the view of officers is that it's more probably aesthetically pleasing and better standard of quality of accommodation with the current proposals in front of you rather than the barn conversion. Thank you.
Any other? I'll come to you in a moment. Councillor Knoll first, and then Councillor Clark, and then.
Thank you, Chairman. I noticed that in the plans that the plans that we've been shown up on the screen, there is an awful lot of hedging that is going to be incorporated into the development. I'm wondering if we could add to the conditions of planting that it should be native hedging rather than anything else, because obviously we need it native to make it appear more conducive, and for the simple reason that non-native hedging can be very invasive. Is it a possibility we can add that to the conditions if it's agreed by the committee?
So condition 10 seeks hard and soft landscaping details, including details of species. So we can add that in there to be native species. Consideration be given to native species.
Back to that point in a moment. Councillor Dennis, yes.
Yes, mine was relatively quick. I am somewhat sympathetic to the comments that were made by, I can't remember exactly which councillor it was, who made the reference to the fact that it would seem more appropriate if it was 1 building rather than 2, and I would agree. But it's not going to necessarily be the deal breaker. And just also to comment on the other points made by and one of the ward councillors, and that is the footpath does connect to the road that goes by the side of the property, so there wouldn't need to be a move of the prow. And secondly, just checking as well, there isn't enough room unless, because the neighbour's land goes more or less up to the road, so there isn't room for a pavement anyway. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, one to point out a mistake in the report, and the other one is that I've got some major queries about. Condition 22, there seems to be a mistake in condition 22, because if I look at the 6th line down, it says the maintenance plan agreed under condition 6 until such time. Condition 6 is linked to asbestos. It's got nothing to do with water neutrality. So I think there's an error there. My major problem with this is water neutrality, because I've been amusing myself going through the numbers. The calculations are predicated upon the average annual average annual rainfall total for the site based on North Heath. The issue is rainfall, it does not fall continuously through the year in equal amounts. And specifically, if you look at the period March, April, May, early June, in fact, the rainfall is much lower, specifically 52.5, 52.6 and 46.8 millimetres. I may be wrong in this, but my calculations based on 236 square metres in total, which is the catchment area for the 2 roofs, come up that I think there's not enough storage on the site to ensure water neutrality. Based on 95 days, basically you've got 35,000, your need is about 33,017 over 95 days, which is based on the demand figures, based on the 35 days and 60 days calculations in the Promotheon planning document dated 18th of the 9th, 2024. They are proposing storage of 30,000 litres, which effectively means about 28,500, because you need about a 4 or 5% buffer in there. But the demand is 33,000 over that time frame. So you've got the rainfall there, but I don't think you've got enough storage. And I think somebody needs to check the calculations before we proceed. I'm not asking for it to be done now, but I would suggest that if somebody's got a spreadsheet and has done the calculations correctly, then that's fine. But I don't think we've got enough storage, and I don't think the water neutrality stacks up. But I might be wrong. I was just doodling with the numbers. Thank you, Chairman. So I would suggest, if in doubt, it might be an idea to defer for one round to check the arithmetic, just to make sure. And I'll correct the report as well, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, very interesting sums here. And I don't have the exact answer to that. What's clear is 35 days is the benchmark that Natural England would support. And I do understand that you've got data there from recently for a 3-month period where rainfall was suppressed, and that would take it close, if not slightly exceed the storage capacity. I think ultimately we need to make a judgment on water neutrality about sort of likelihood. Is that a one-off, etc. Otherwise, we're having to sort of design these systems to have 100 days, for instance, water capacity. So I think the advice of officers is that through Natural England and our standard approach, we consider that it is a robust water neutrality solution. What I could suggest is that because the draft local plan is proposing to put a secondary settlement boundary around this site, our view as officers is that this site would likely be eligible for the Grampian condition. So therefore has the option of snows or a bespoke solution, which could be this rainwater system once it's been clarified around these numbers. So an option, Councillor, would be to amend or add in a condition, which would the Grampian condition on water neutrality.
Can I come back on that, Chairman?
Certainly, yes, sorry, I was just taking a note.
Yeah, I think the main point of my argument is that these calculations are done on averages over the year, and I'm saying that that is a flawed methodology because rainfall is not equal through the year. So that's the first point. And I think that when these calculations are done, you actually should look at the period of low rainfall and do your calculations in that context rather than the average for the year, is my argument. But I like your, sorry, I'll rephrase that. I think the proposal of putting in a Grampian on this is probably an elegant solution and the way forward on it in view of my uncertainty over the mathematics and the way this would stack up in reality. So thank you.
And just as a point of clarity, when we arrived at the 35-day figure, that was working with our environmental health team, looking at historic drought periods. I think it was 2021, 2022 when there was a long summer drought. And that's why we upped the British standard from 18 days to 35. Thank you.
Okay, I'm conscious we have two proposals on conditions here. Any other councillor? Yes, Claudia Fisher.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fisher, apologies.
That's okay, don't worry. I hadn't really picked up till Councillor Croker mentioned the difference in the height from the barn to the houses, and I do think that's fairly significant. I would really like to have been able to see a visual representation of that so that we could say, well, this is what it sits there already. And I also hadn't appreciated that it was quite a long, I just looked it up now because of the conversation, long history of kind of coming backwards and forwards, and I feel like a little bit. Well, there is now permission for the barn conversion, so therefore now we need to up it into something different. And I actually do think that the Billingshurst parish have got a very good point about, you know, reusing what we've got rather than going for something, you know, new, which will have a quite significant impact on the visual impact of that rural environment. So those are my concerns.
Thank you.
Can I just make a point of clarity? The building in its current condition, I don't know if you've got the visual there to show, clearly will need a significant amount of work in order to convert it. Almost, if not, I wouldn't say starting from scratch, because clearly it's a Class Q conversion, but you can see that clearly it's not in the best of conditions. The other point I would flag is that the design of these two new homes has been considered in the fact that Plot 2 does take on a converted barn aesthetic. As you can see here with the large sort of faux barn doors and finishes, and then Plot 1 has the appearance almost of a sort of worker's cottage that sits alongside. So due care and consideration has been taken to the fact that this is on the edge of Five Oaks. It has visibility in the wider landscape, and for those reasons officers do consider that whilst it is taller than the existing barn, that it would be a suitable end point to the built development of Five Oaks.
Now, Councillor Knoll, you put forward a change to a condition to include native hedging. Just reaffirm that condition, please.
It was condition 10, I think. Yes, condition 10. I would just like the words added that the trees should be all native species. Actually, I should say trees and planting should be of native species.
And the wording of the condition first. Sorry. Do you want to read it out?
I would suggest looking at condition 10, it's part B that you're referring to, Councillor, and I would suggest says details of all proposed trees and planting, including schedules specifying native species, planting size, densities, etc.
You're happy. So you're proposing that...
Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. Yes, I'm proposing that and I'm happy with the wording.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Croker. So we're voting on the amendment to the condition to include reference to native trees and planting to condition 10 part B. All those in favour of that amendment? Everybody. That's unanimous. Okay, that's unanimous. We now have a condition proposed by Councillor Clark. And that's the adding of a Grampian condition, which we need to come to the words with. Okay, the officer will read out what that Grampian condition will be.
So the Grampian condition is the standard condition that many members will be aware of. Do you wish me still to read out the condition?
I'm content, Chairman, with the standard condition, Grampian condition. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just, for the benefit of other members, could you read that?
Sure.
Please, sorry.
Okay, so the Grampian condition says, no development shall commence until either 1. Details have been submitted to and been approved in writing by the local planning authority, confirming that the necessary credits to achieve water neutrality have been secured via the Sussex North Offsetting Water Scheme. Or 2. A site-specific water neutrality mitigation scheme has been submitted to and been approved in writing by the planning authority. The site-specific water neutrality mitigation scheme shall include full details of the means of any and all on-site and off-site mitigation and any necessary agreements pursuant to Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act to deliver and secure the approved mitigation. And 3, The development shall not be first occupied until evidence has been submitted to and been approved in writing by the planning authority confirming that the approved site-specific water neutrality mitigation scheme has been fully implemented. The approved mitigation shall thereafter be retained, maintained and operated to the same or better water performance standard. And the reason, policy 31 of the HDPF, paragraph 193 of the NPPF and Conservation of Habitat and Species Regulations 2017.
Thank you. I won't ask you to repeat. Councillor Clark, you will propose that motion. Do I have a seconder for that motion? That condition, sorry. Yeah, Councillor Knoll. All those in favour of adding that condition? That's unanimous. Thank you. I will just go back to the local ward members. Councillor Bailey.
Sorry, Chairman, there was one other point. The correction on that other condition? Or do we just take it as read?
Oh, apologies.
Yes, the reference to condition 6 should mean condition 7 and we'll adjust that accordingly.
And can you ensure that's minuted, please? Thank you. Councillor Croker, yes.
Is it possible to come back, Chair, on what I said earlier? Having given it somewhat more thought, I'm a little concerned.
Yes, you can come back.
I'm a little concerned I might have come over as somewhat negative with regard to the development in view of the appearance as you come into Five Oaks. Forgetting, of course, that the barn conversion itself has a lot of windows on its face that comes down the road, and I think I might have overlooked that in some of my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bainham.
No, I think it's all been said. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Trollope.
I still think that this development will improve the character of the local area, and I approve it.
Thank you. Therefore, we will go to the vote. The vote is on the original recommendation, which was to approve planning permission subject to appropriate conditions. All those for?
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Therefore, the application has been approved. Moving to the next agenda item, which is urgent business. Well, there's none from me, but as we come to the end of... Councillor Bainham, sorry, apologies.
Yes, I just wanted to note that given that this is the last meeting in its current form of Planning South Committee, I would just like to propose a vote of thanks to our Chairman and Vice Chair and previous Vice Chair for their great work on running this committee.
Notice didn't get a seconder, but thank you very much. As we come to the end of the council year, I would like to thank the officers for their excellent support and guidance throughout the year. I'd also like to thank the members for their engagement, reasoned debate and reasoned challenge. And at the end of the evening, I wish you all a safe journey home. And at 19:57, I bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.